What is up, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Design Tribe. I'm so excited you're here. Today I'm talking to Lisa Clow all about Surtex versus Blueprint and which trade show is better for surface pattern designers to go to. She gets real honest about which show she's going back to in 2020, so you're going to want to hear all the details. I ask amazing questions and she has amazing answers, and really just tells you all the details you need to know about going to the trade shows. I'm super excited to introduce Lisa. She's an illustrator and surface pattern designer based out of the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. Her aesthetic is fresh with a dreamlike quality and just loads of hand-drawn elements, which I love. She was my neighbor at Blueprint show in New York. Our booths were right beside each other, and I was just so excited to meet her and get to know her. She's an amazing artist and just an amazing person. So you can find Lisa on Instagram at Lisa Clow Studio or on her website at lisaclow.com. All right, let's dive in.
Kind of floundered in college a little bit, and then took a break just to decide what I wanted to do. And my dad is actually a designer, a graphic designer and illustrator. And so I kind of grew up with him in his office in our house. And I was just like, well, I think I could do that. I think that's what I should do, because otherwise I'm going to do nothing. So I went back to school and just got a 2-year associate's degree, and then graduated and worked for a nonprofit. So I did some in-house design with them for about 5 years. I did that plus freelancing, and then I had a baby. And after that, I was like, I just want to see if I can work for myself, if I can do this. So I opened a shop and started selling things online, and then at like craft fairs and markets. And I don't know, it was kind of intuitive. I just dove right in and started doing the craft fair circuit, and then heard about Surtex. So.
Awesome. So what inspired you to attend both Surtex and Blueprint in 2019?
Yeah. So I heard about Surtex a couple years before I actually went. So I had cold feet for a long time. And I didn't know about Blueprint until I had already signed up for Surtex. And I was doing all this research about it, and I read and heard people say, like, you kind of want to do, I don't know, get the best bang for your buck. So you're buying these banners, you're buying supplies, and I heard that Blueprint was happening in New York City also, and my husband was like, you should just do both. You already have everything ready. And just see how it goes. And I also heard people say you need like 3 trade shows to kind of get going client-wise.
Oh, interesting.
I heard that more than once, and I couldn't tell you who said it, but I just remember reading like, oh, okay, don't expect to get a ton of clients at your first trade show. It'll usually take about 3 kind of get a groove, feel comfortable, and people to get to know you. And so I thought, well, I should do this. I don't know. We just dove in. So.
Right. Okay, so what can you tell us about art licensing? Like, how did you find out about it? I mean, I know you mentioned that your dad kind of being an illustrator and growing up with it. So did you kind of grow up always knowing about it? Because I feel like a lot of artists are very confused about how to get into our industry and, if it's even possible for them and all of that.
Yeah, I did not know about it. I do remember having a conversation with my dad, like in high school or college, and I was like, I want my stuff in stores. And he was like, I didn't even have stuff for there to be in stores yet. I was just like dreaming. And he was like, oh, you can do it. Everybody can do it. And so he's just like, yeah, try. But years later, I remembered that conversation. And anyway, all that to say, I don't know. Hold on. Sorry, I got sidetracked. What was the exact question again?
So like, what can you tell us about art licensing? Like, how did you kind of find out about it? Because, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of artists are confused what it even is or how to get started in it. I don't know.
I kind of got really interested once Instagram came around. You were following these illustrators and designers, and you're like, oh, I know that person. I saw their stuff in World Market, or I saw their stuff in Target. And it was kind of an internet rabbit trail for me, where I was like, okay, literally Googling like how to get my stuff in stores. I met someone who knew about Surtex and mentioned doing it. So then I just Googled everything I could about licensing. And licensing basically is a designer selling their artwork for a couple of years at a time, or 1 to 3 years usually, for a particular type of product. So say I have a zebra that I've drawn that says happy birthday. This company is like, we want that for paper goods, and we want it for 2 years. And you get a percentage of every wholesale sale that we make. And so it's kind of like, at least for me, it's helpful to think of like a songwriter who has a song on the radio. They get a cut every time that radio is played.
Right.
Or every time it's bought on iTunes. It's a very small percentage a lot of times, but they still get paid, and it adds up over time. And then the license expires. So after 2 years, sometimes the company will say, we want to keep using it. It's going well. Can we renew your contract for 2 more years or 1 more year? Or they'll cancel it and you get your art back for that type of product.
You still own the copyrights here, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who might not, yeah, or who might be new to a lot of people. So the cool thing, yeah, I think about art licensing is that you still own your work and you've just sort of leased it to a company for X amount of years, usually about 1 or 2 years. And then, like you said, if it's a bestseller, then obviously they would want to keep using that design. And then, you would probably want to keep doing that as well because you're making money from it also. So it's kind of nice. It's kind of like you're eating your own cooking on both sides, the designer making the designs and the manufacturer making good products. So when you kind of pull all your forces together, and you can get really great.
Exactly.
So exactly. Okay, cool. Okay, so what's the difference then between art licensing and a buyout? I know when I first signed up for Blueprint, I was trying to learn more about this, just like dude from just being on me, a manufacturer type. I worked for several years, but I was still trying to figure out how to get there myself and on my own, and I wasn't quite sure, if I wanted to just do licensing or do a buyout or maybe both, because it is a big investment. So I mean, could you just talk a little bit about the licensing, I guess, path, and also the buyout path? I mean, could you just maybe talk about a little bit about the license, I guess, licensing path, and also the buyout?
So I'll just kind of explain the two first. I guess we said what licensing is, where you keep your copyright, you get your art back, and you can license the same artwork to all sorts of products all at the same time. And then sometimes there's companies that are like, we want to license it. It's an exclusive contract, so we're the only ones that get this artwork for 2 years. But
do you get a higher percentage then?
I would think so. I haven't done an exclusive one yet.
Okay, me neither.
I don't know if I would. I don't really know about it. I know they exist. But with buyout, I think which is pretty popular now. A lot of companies do this, but it's like one fee for your artwork for a specific type of category. So there's category buyout and there's total buyout. And category buyout would mean, oh, we're buying this artwork for paper goods or for textiles. And so you could still have someone else buy out for a different category.
Right. So that's a lot to keep track of then, right? If you have your designs and then someone comes to you and says, oh yeah, like we want to buy this for kids wear or baby, but then you're like, okay, great, but I can still sell it, like you said, like to stationery or women's apparel, or I don't know, like a different category like home decor. Then you have to make sure that, you're keeping track of where all the designs are going.
It sounds kind of confusing. I haven't done it yet. So I can't say I know a whole lot about it, but with total buyout, you get paid more, supposedly, and you don't get your artwork back with either buyout.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone forever.
And I've also heard, this is all hearsay, that you can't create something similar either. Like, you can't create something that's going to compete with it, I guess. And so, I don't know, that was kind of a new thing I had heard at Blueprint among people, but
yeah, I guess that would make sense. I'm just speculating here, but it seems like it would make sense that you wouldn't create like another version of the same design, like kind of like a rip-off or something of your own design, right? I mean, it's kind of a broad term. It's like, all right, you're an artist and this is your style, so like you obviously have to create more work, but
I don't know what that would look like exactly, but
yeah, I would think if you just went in and like rotated the motifs and like change the scale, that's probably not okay. Like it's too similar, right?
But I think just to boil it down, licensing is you would get like probably a number of checks over time. Buyout is just one flat fee. And I've talked to some people, they asked me at Surtex, do you do buyout? And I didn't have anything prepared that I was ready to just give up forever at that time. And a lot of them were kind of pushing me like, oh, you should do buyout. Basically, because it's easier on them. And that makes sense. And that's why companies are doing that. And I think I'll probably try to come up with some designs that I would be up for that. But right now, a lot of my stuff is so stylized that it'd be weird. Yeah, I'd feel like I'd have to say goodbye forever to my really good friend. And I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's hard. I mean, I guess if you're creating like a massive amount of work, then maybe you could go through and be like, okay, these are my least favorite, so I'm going to put these up for a buyout because I'm okay to say goodbye to them and I don't feel like I'm missing them or like they're timeless. And it's something that's like, for me, it feels like it could be like a trend for this season or for the next couple of seasons. And maybe it's a buyout, but if you feel like it's really extra special, like your style is very special and unique to you. Whereas if I did, I don't know, I could do a license or a buyout. Like if I did a terrazzo pattern, I could probably do a buyout for those because I don't know, it's not like it's going to be around or timeless or forever. They wouldn't be super unique to me, but both. I would definitely struggle when I went to Blueprint, like because I got the same question: do you do licensing or do you do buyouts? Meanwhile, I'm still learning, so I'm like, I do both, I guess. Or the way it worked out is that clients I talked to, but yeah, I can see why a buyout would be easier for them because they can do whatever they want with it and they don't have to worry about checking, because they probably have a huge bank of artwork, and it's just hard to keep track of all the little details, but it's also more expensive for them. So like if they have the budget to do that, then it makes sense that they would. Okay, so are you currently working with an agent, or are you working just are you like selling your own designs?
I'm not with an agent. I think I'm open to it. I love the idea of having someone in my corner, like telling me like, okay, this is wise, this contract, this is what is going on here, or just help along the way. And then, but at the same time, for me, my schedule is a little crazy right now. And I like being able to kind of go at my own pace. I feel like, and you can share in just a second. But I feel like I'm not ready to completely dive into surface design, because I also am interested in like children's publishing, so doing illustration for kids' books. And so I'm kind of in both. And I would feel like if I had an agent, I'd be committing more than I'm ready to right now. But anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I just recently signed with an agent, so I'll tell you guys a little bit about that. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of artists are kind of torn between whether they want to work with an agent or not. So I definitely talked to some artists that were already working with this agent, and they all had really wonderful things to say. And I think it comes down to just how you want to work. Like, do you want to do the business side and like the selling side of the business? Because when you're doing art licensing, you're kind of in your own little world, right? So stayed the way they were, I could probably do it. But I'm kind of anticipating within the next couple of years that my schedule is going to be like really crazy as well. Like, I don't know, I got married in December and I want to have kids. I mean, I don't know if it'll happen, but I mean, that's what I want to. So just to be able to focus on my art and not have to worry about the selling side is just kind of a load off. And now most agents do take about 50%. So you have to factor that in. And thankfully, I'm in a situation where I'm able to do that right now. But I think it made sense from where I'm at in my life right now. And we'll see if I like the way it's working or not. And so it's not like forever. And if I'm not loving the way it's working, then, I don't have to renew the contract. And at that point, I can tell myself, okay, like you're selling these designs yourself now, and you have to like really be willing to go after this client and not be afraid to email them over and over again. And, just like, you have to hustle and be persistent. And so, I don't know, I don't feel like I'm good at sales, or maybe I just don't enjoy sales, which is kind of the nice part about handing that side off to the agent. But I do like going to trade shows, so I'll probably miss that because, I met you and I met so many other great people. And I don't know, it's just nice to meet other artists because most of the time you work at home all by yourself.
So did you meet, have you talked to other people, or I guess you said you talked to people that are under this agent already. Did you talk to them before signing with them?
Yes, I asked them if I could speak to some other artists and just ask them questions and everything before I signed, because I was definitely like, I want to be careful about signing a contract like that, and I wanted to ask a lot of questions and make sure they understood kind of my perspective on things, because the agent that I ended up signing with, they do a lot of wall art, which is not necessarily, I'm more of like soft goods, and I worked in home decor for a long time. So I wanted to make sure and like really understood that I didn't want to lose that, but they seem to understand that. So we'll see how it goes.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool. I hope we get to buy some of your things soon.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, so how did you prepare for Surtex and Blueprint? Like, were the setups different, and like what should artists expect? Like in terms of how to set up for the shows? Because I know sometimes that it can be intimidating when you have like a booth to set up all by yourself. Like I've done it with companies in the past and set up rug showrooms, but it's like I always kind of had a boss telling me what to do or giving some direction at least. So how did you set up for the shows?
Yeah, so they're very different shows. So Surtex, it's like your own office space is what it feels like. That's how I felt. And then at Blueprint, it's just a table among other tables with 2 or 3 banners behind you. And both, they have their different purposes, and both are great atmospheres, I felt like. But I did like the privacy of Surtex, where there's like a wall. I don't know. I just liked being able to kind of style my space.
Yeah.
Both had banners, like they had spots for your artwork to be printed and hung. But I will say it was not as intimidating. When I got there and was setting up, both were not as scary as I had thought it was going to be. Does that make sense? Because when we got to Surtex, everybody's like, at least in our area, everyone's like, can you help me put this? And do you have any command strips or whatever? It was like, we all had each other's back, even though we didn't know each other. We were kind of in the same boat. But preparing wise, both had banners. Surtex, you can choose between like a high table with high stools, or you can have a lower desk table. And both of their tables have like shelving underneath where you could store stuff, and it's just a bigger space. At least my space was. And then with Blueprint, it was just one tabletop, like a 6-foot table, I think, maybe an 8-foot with a black tablecloth. And then you had your space underneath the table to kind of hide things. But I would expect, this is regarding setup, right? Yeah, I don't know. I expected things to tear or to lose something, or to have more time for both. I wanted to give myself extra time to prepare. And honestly, nothing really went crazy other than I had a baby with me. And they were like, she can't. I was like, oh, shoot. And so my husband had to stay in the lobby of the Javits Center while I went up and did everything. And then we'd switch and he would go up and kind of tack things in place. But it is a little crazy. You had to kind of go find help. Like they had a wall up where I didn't ask for a wall at Surtex, which it's like extra money. And so I was like, I didn't ask for this. Please don't charge me X amount of dollars for this wall. Can you tear it down? But I had to go find a man. I didn't even know who I was looking for. It was just really busy. Whereas Blueprint, when I came, it was very chill.
Yeah, like I was about to say, it sounded, I mean, of course I only went to Blueprint, but I feel like from talking to everyone that Blueprint sounded way more chill than Surtex. Surtex kind of sounded a little crazy and maybe busier, and that could be a good thing as well, but kind of more chaotic in terms of the setup, and maybe just a bigger setup and more cumbersome, and people probably had way more stuff to bring, and I was just like by myself. Like I didn't have anyone helping me. So just to set up for Blueprint, I had like this giant body bag. Basically, like people were like, who did you murder? And yeah, I just had to have all of my stuff, my banners, and I didn't even feel like I brought that much compared to some other people who had like these crazy displays and all of this cool stuff. But I feel like setting up for Surtex is maybe a little more intimidating just in my mind. I mean, if I probably did it, I'd probably be like, I did it, it's okay, like, yeah.
And it's as involved as you want it to be. Like I just brought samples and I had like a little wire basket with some stuff, and you can do so much with command strips and command hook. But some people, you can pay for shelving and you can pay for all this stuff. But I really, I don't think all of that is necessary. It's really cool to look at and show people what you've done or what you were wanting to do. But you didn't have that space at Blueprint, so it was kind of nice. I felt like we're all kind of on the same.
It was kind of more equal, like we're all on the same playing field. Yeah, that's nice.
But anyway, I don't know.
Okay. Well, did you present the same collection for both shows, or did you make different collections for each? How did that work?
Yeah, no, I took the same stuff to both because what I did license from Surtex was non-exclusive anyway, and so I could take it with me and see if there was someone else who wanted it. But the only thing I did differently was since there was less space at Blueprint, I had to choose what banners to bring to kind of showcase my work, whereas I took 5 to Surtex and I had to pick, was it 3 or 2 for Blueprint. And so I guess featured different things. And I brought different samples. I don't know. I was just like, I just want to test out something different. So I brought different swatches and some different things from my shop.
Okay, yeah, for me that's interesting. It was interesting to learn that people they just kind of showed the same collection and showed, some of the same patterns like year after year. And so, like, they didn't put the year on the printout because, they didn't want people to know that it was old, I guess.
Yeah.
And coming from the rug side where I used to work, or like the manufacturer side, we always presented a lot of newness at market, like twice a year. So in my mind, you have to present newness at the show. But I guess like with surface pattern design, you really don't have to because you're able to, license to multiple people and the designs are still available and so on.
Yeah. And I think also you're seeing so many different people. If I did see some of the same people at Blueprint, some of the same companies, and I talked to some of the same art directors that I did at Surtex, and they remembered certain things of mine, but they didn't remember all of it, and they didn't think that was weird. They were like, oh, I remember this. I really liked, it was some reindeer stuff, or I don't know. I don't think companies are put out by...
Yeah, that's nice. That helps you feel like so frantic, like going to each show, you have to show newness.
That would be impossible. I feel like do a whole new book of designs would be, I don't know, super.
Yeah, it's hard when you're doing it all by yourself. Yeah, when I worked at a company and that's all we did, we had a team, so that really helped. So getting into the cost, how much did Surtex cost for you versus Blueprint costs? And I do want to also mention that Lisa didn't have the lemonade stand. We call it the lemonade stand when one person who's brand new shows in like a tiny booth. And I also heard that it wasn't really worth it to do the lemonade stand because buyers just sort of pass you by. Is that what you experienced seeing there?
Yeah, I was in the kind of newbie avenue called the Design District at Surtex, but the woman who kind of runs the show, she was like, we're actually out of all the lemonade stands, like the little, I think 1 banner and then 2 skinny banners with a tiny little table. She was like, we're out of those spots. And I was like, shoot. She said, we do have a corner booth for like $300 more or something. It was not very much more expensive. And so I got like 6 by 10 feet to myself. But it was still really, it was still in the new space, but it was still really big. And so I was like, okay, I'll do that. But I felt like, I don't know, I got to be pretty good friends with the people around me, and they also had a lot of conversations. And I don't know who got deals or not. But I do know they all got a lot of contacts, and we, for the most part, all would like to go back again to Surtex.
Okay.
I don't think they want the little space. There's something really nice about having banners to show your work, because if all they see is that 1 banner, you're automatically like pigeonholed into this style or this type of, at least I think, this type of look. And so I do think they were written off a little bit more quickly than I was, which is kind of a bummer because everyone's so talented. But cost-wise, I'm trying to think. The booth itself, for me, I think was about, I think it was almost $3,000, or maybe it was a little under $3,000 for the booth. Mm-hmm. But then I had airfare, and I took an Uber from LaGuardia. It's just a ridiculous amount of money. But I had a baby, so it was like crazy. But then there's food and hotel. But so Blueprint cost was, I think, less than $2,000 for the booth. But hotel prices in May are so much more expensive than in February when Surtex is. And so honestly, like, it was pretty even for me to do both shows. Like
Oh, really?
Yeah, Blueprint was maybe...
Because at Blueprint, I think the booth was about $1,200 at least.
Okay.
Yeah, at least, yeah. That's what I paid.
Okay.
Yeah, it was still like way more than that. Like, I think it ended up being probably around $4,000 with, I mean, I'm just guessing here, like the hotel and the flight and just eating all the food that you have to eat out. I don't know. Yeah. Just like the transportation. I don't know. I'm guessing it's probably a little bit less than that, but.
So yeah, I think Surtex probably costs a little more, about $5,000 for me, like total. Blueprint was probably more around like $4 something, but the hotel, I think my hotel was just so expensive where I ended up being. But yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah, I heard one artist got an Airbnb, so there's like different options where you can try to save money there. But yeah, I do think the booth itself is a lot. Like, people are at Blueprint and, you're not getting as much. You're just getting the table, and then that's pretty much it. It's just like a table and 2 chairs. And then like you do the rest. And at Surtex, it's more of like an actual booth, right?
Yeah. What I didn't know with Surtex was, I was going to mention this, was they have webinars. So they have like a Q&A with someone who knows about licensing, and they had a setup webinar where you learn about setting up and all these tips. And then you get 25 free contacts. So they give you everyone who signed up to come to Surtex, and you basically get 25 emails where you don't know what the actual email address is, but you can contact them. And I had I don't know, probably 10 companies come by that I met. And so it was, some of them were really cool. So that was one thing that, Surtex is more, but there is a lot they help you a lot. Okay. Whereas Blueprint, they didn't have a lot ahead of time that I felt prepared. I didn't feel as prepared for Blueprint.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. They had the Facebook group where people could ask questions, but you're kind of just relying on a lot of other designers who had been in the past. And they did not give you emails ahead of time, so you couldn't really set up meetings, which would have been really nice, because you're like, all right, I'm making this much investment to go to the show, and it's my first time, and I want to make sure like somebody comes by my booth, because, and not just like cold traffic. But yeah, they don't give you that, but they do give you all of the emails of everyone who attended the show after it's over. Okay, so, Okay, so then do you feel like the cost was worth the investment then for both shows?
I do. That's kind of, it just depends on what is the type of value you're going to put on it. So, what's going to make it worth it for you? Like, is leaving with a licensing contract, is that what's going to make it worth it? Then Blueprint, I didn't leave with any contracts from there, but I still felt like it was worth it for me. I learned so much. I met so many people. I have contacts from both where I'm still emailing. They could turn into something, but I'm building relationships, and so trying to give it time, and keep my foot in their door. So I feel like it was, but everybody's different on what they're hoping to get out from it.
Yeah, I think that was my biggest hesitation for so long, before finally making the decision to go to a trade show, because it was just a lot of money up front and you don't really know if you're going to get it back. But you also have to think really what I want to do with my career, like long term. Yeah. So when you think about that, it's almost like,
yeah,
I don't know, investing in a college course or like a major. I don't know. It's like you have to do it if you really want to do this full time. Now, if you work with an agent, of course, you don't have to go to trade shows and you don't have to make that investment because they represent you at the show. But then you're grouped in with all the other artists they're representing. So they're not necessarily seeing buyers aren't necessarily seeing you and your brand as much as they would if they were walking the show and you had a booth to yourself. So there's definitely pros and cons of both. But I'm kind of glad I did go to the trade show on that point first, but kind of before deciding to go with an agent. And I do think I'll miss interacting with other artists, but buyers getting to see my face as well and kind of getting to meet me face to face. So yeah. And now I won't have to make that investment anymore for the next 2 years, but it's not bad. So I mean, maybe once the ball gets rolling more and I have more contracts, then I won't really know if I'll know at that time if it was worth the investment. So I've talked with some other artists though who have been doing this a while, and they said it was worth it every year, and they wouldn't keep going if it wasn't. So I do think it's kind of the snowball effect. Like you said, you have to go to 3 shows before you really know if you've met the right clients and gotten the ball rolling. And it's tough. What's really hard is it's really hard for people to get into this business for that reason. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the next question was, did you walk away with any licensing deals? Which I think you just said no, that you didn't from Blueprint, but you did from Surtex, right?
I did. And my dream was to walk away with one. I didn't even, I was like, I don't know. There's so many people there. But I did. I met a manufacturer who they have products all over the country in boutiques and retail and department stores. And so they made, they got officially 2 collections. And then there's some other ones that they're kind of thinking about still and looking at. So hopefully, I think they're available now, like buyers, they're taking my stuff to trade shows right now. And the products are already made. But I think they'll be in stores in the spring.
Oh, that's so exciting. Congrats. I'm sure you can't wait to see them in stores.
I'm wondering what stores they're going to be in, because I don't know who's going to buy from them. So we'll see. But then there's another fabric company that I met, and I have a couple collections coming out with them online, hopefully in the next few weeks.
Awesome. I got a contract with the fabric company as well. So I'm working on Christmas designs for them. And I'm so not in the mood to draw Christmas right now though. But they want me to add to the collection. So I'm like, it's still hot outside.
Oh my gosh.
Why?
I've been doing Christmas for the last few months for some other clients. And I have to watch Christmas movies and listen to Christmas music to kind of get in the zone. But anyway, I think I'm done.
Yeah. It's hard, yeah. I'm not the most festive person with Christmas anyway. I can get in the spirit when it's cold and it's actually Christmas Day, but other than that, I'm oh God.
It's hilarious.
Okay, so do you plan on going back to Surtex and or Blueprint in 2020? And are you going to go back to both shows?
Yeah, I think right now, I think I am going to do Surtex. I don't think I'm going to do Blueprint, but
okay.
I think I'm just going to go all in with Surtex and kind of try it again. I might even get the same booth, which is crazy because it's in the design district, kind of the newbie section, but it was on the corner. I don't know. I'm picking out my space right now and talking with them about where to go on the map, I guess. But yeah, that's the plan.
Okay, so will you attend any other shows besides Surtex and Blueprint? Like, I think I've heard of Print Source, and there's some other ones.
I don't have any plans to. Okay. I did look at Print Source.
It's quite expensive as well. I looked at it too, and I was like, ooh, ouch.
Yeah, and I don't know. I kind of want to get in the groove with this one and do it really well. And then I have some other conferences I might go to for like illustration stuff.
Okay.
And that kind of money is going to be spent there instead of trade shows for 2020. But
okay, cool.
Yeah. What about you? Would you? Oh no. Well, you have an agent.
Well, I have an agent, so I won't have to. But if I did not sign with an agent, what I actually talked about was sharing a booth at Surtex with another artist, and she's one of my friends. So that's another thing you can do with the process, is just really something that if it's something that you can't swing, and you try to find another artist who would also like to, wanting to share a booth. I mean, we've seen people like up to, I think, 4 people share at Blueprint, and they kind of had like a collective going. Do you think that you would kind of get lost in that? Because I don't know if I'd want to share with more than like one other person, but again, it really just kind of depends on, I guess what you want to do. But yeah, I think if I didn't have an agent, I would plan on going to Surtex and just try that one out. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could swing the cost of both shows in 1 year, and it takes a while, especially with licensing, to see if you've kind of earned your income back. So I don't know. I think I would need to get back to that level and kind of get a real salary going again before I could think about starting to go to multiple trade shows in 1 year. But yeah, I think I would want to try Surtex because it sounds like it's one of the best ones. And yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so if you're not going to work with an agent, do you think it's necessary to attend trade shows, or could someone get into art licensing maybe without attending trade shows? What do you think?
I've met people who have had some big clients that they landed through Instagram.
Interesting.
Where they're, and what's funny is like the one girl that I met, she doesn't have like 100,000 followers or anything. She just has a really unique point of view and aesthetic. And so, but then she did end up doing Surtex. And so later, but she didn't meet those clients at Surtex. But so I think you can. I think you can find out who the art director is of certain companies that you like. And I would always kind of look at the back of stuff at Target, like who manufactures this? And kind of look around. So I think you can go that route. I personally am, I don't know. I just could not think of a way to meet that many companies any other way. And so I feel like that it was necessary for me. But
yeah, I think there's something to be said, I think, for meeting buyers face to face, and they kind of remember you, even if it's just a little inkling, because they are taking in a lot of the show, so it's hard to remember everything and everyone and all of the art you see, of course. But I mean, it does save a lot of time, I think, because otherwise if you tried to reach out, by email to all the people that came by your booth, I mean, how long would that take? So you're going to get a lot of rejection because a lot of people just walk by your booth, and that's okay. I mean, it's almost easier to just let someone walk by your booth than to be like, no one's responding to me or my email. Like, do I just kind of suck? Yeah. So I think it's a good way to kind of get the most bang for your buck. And it's possible, I think, to do it without going to trade shows. And a lot of people are looking on Instagram now, but it's also hard to try to be seen on Instagram as well. So that can go either way.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, with Surtex, people know what they're looking for. And so when they see your booth, and you've highlighted kids and home, and they're in kids and home, they're going to stop. Whereas most of the time people don't have time to go through the internet and look for new artists on Instagram. I think I've heard they spend a little bit of time doing that, but most of the time companies that I met, they said, we do Surtex every year. And that's when we look for new designers. And so, I don't know. I just felt like, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that going into it. Or they're looking for other departments in their company too. So I met one really cool company, and their children's department wasn't there, but she was like, oh, here's my card, contact me and I'll hook you up with them. And so, I don't know, there's just so many neat opportunities if you weren't there physically.
Awesome. Okay, well, for everyone who's watching on Facebook Live, be sure to leave a comment and ask any questions. And I'm just going to go over to the Facebook group now and see who has asked a question, and we'll try to answer those for you now. So someone is asking, hey, Caroline. She's asking, how do you find a way to find your style and balance your work-life balance? She says she has 2 kids and work and finds it to be really hard. So Lisa, you're also a mom. I can't speak to the having kids part of things, but how do you find a work-life balance and have your own style?
Oh, I think it is hard. For me, when it comes to working from home, and my kids are 3 and almost 1, time is really limited. So I do have a lot of late nights or early mornings where I'm just pumping out whatever I can, or nap time if that happens. But it really is, I have had to think about, okay, what am I going to sacrifice to get this done? And so it's kind of, for me, it's boiled down to, I have to sacrifice some sleep to get some of the work finished. But that's not every night or every day. Hopefully this is helping with the question. But style and aesthetic, for me, I think it just came out the more I made. So allow yourself to sketch as much as possible and make stuff. Even if you don't like it, just keep making stuff and keep designing and keep trying new color schemes. And I never thought I had a style until I put everything, like I was printing some stuff out and for my first craft fair, and I was like, oh, I have a lot of the same markings that I reuse. And eventually I think it becomes innate. And I guess my last thought is with aesthetic, like if you like something that you do, just keep doing it. Like, second guess yourself, like I really like this shade of blue a lot and I use it a lot. I think that's okay. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I actually did a whole YouTube video and started a 90-day challenge for people to try to find their own art style. And yeah, I found myself in the same boat when I kind of dreamed about being a surface pattern designer for so long, but I'd always worked for a company. So it was like, okay, I had to do a style that was for Target or, for someone more mass like Lowe's or Home Depot. And, I had to do it in their style. So then when I quit my job and moved to Alabama, I was like, oh crap, like what is my style? Or, what's my style? I don't know, but I'm going to Blueprint, so I better figure it out. I think you're right. I think it's just not, about making a crap ton of work. And of course, I've been designing a long time, but it was just about narrowing down what I really like, right? Figuring out what represented me and my style. And, but again, you just have to experiment. Like you have to just make a lot of art. And I think that a lot of people are hesitant to pull out their paintbrush or pull out their Wacom tablet because they're like, I don't even know what to do. But it doesn't matter. If you think about the artists that you admire the most, they didn't always have a style, okay? They developed it by continuing to make a lot of work. Also, Caroline, if you're listening, then I would encourage you to watch the video on YouTube and sign up for the 90-day challenge. There are daily prompts for 90 days, and I will find that 90 days is a great amount of time to focus on what you're making, and it's totally okay if you miss a day because let's say as long as you're making 90 pieces of art or designs, if you make that amount of work for yourself, you're going to start to see some consistency and similar mark making, and it's your color palette and so on. So then you'll be able to narrow down and say, okay, this is what I really like. I'm going to keep doing that because it's yours and it's unique and it's awesome.
Yeah.
One more question from Neela left. And she says, I live in Chile, South America. Is it possible to work as a surface pattern designer from another country? What about as an online freelancer, or do you need to go to the fairs? What do you think?
So what was the second half of the question? It kind of cut out when you said.
Oh, sorry. She's asking about being a surface pattern designer but mainly trying to do it more from an online perspective, because I think from being in Chile, it's probably just really hard to go to the trade shows that we're talking about.
I think, the one thing I would say is just Google. I Google every single question I have about surface design, and I Google like who are worldwide designers, people who have stores worldwide, because sometimes companies only work with people in the US maybe. So you could do that. But what was I going to say? I think it's totally possible. It just might take a little more hustle emailing and following up with emails. But do you have thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. So I think in terms of being an online freelancer, I think that's quite different from being a surface pattern designer where your name is going to end up on the product, or, like your brand name is going to be kind of owning the license. And I think if you're going to be an online freelancer, you can kind of just do more quantity of work and looking at corporate sites like Pattern Bank or maybe Spoonflower. And I know artists that do that. I see them online, and I think that you can make a decent living doing that. Now, is your objective just to design patterns for a living? Or is your objective to kind of get your name on products and get that royalty, more of a licensing deal? Because, on a site like Pattern Bank, you're not necessarily working with buyers, but they're kind of going to have more of that like relationship when you're working with the buyers. So we go to trade shows, or, if you work from home. Because, on a site like Pattern Bank, you're not necessarily going to know the buyers or the manufacturers and the retailers, and you're not really getting a hand in the product development. Whereas with licensing deals, you're going to have more of a relationship with the buyers. And if you go to trade shows or, so there are quite a bit of international people that do come to these trade shows. I definitely met people from like Paris, France at Blueprint and so on. So they made the investment to come. So I would hopefully, if you're able to at some point, or sometimes you can get really cheap flights to New York. New York is a great hub for these shows. Even though it is kind of expensive, again, if you could partner up with another international designer and maybe share an Airbnb or maybe share a booth, that is one way to cut costs. But yeah, I think if you plan ahead, you should be able to get a cheap flight to New York. So it really just depends on what your objective is. And if you want to be like an online freelancer, then there are so many sites to help you do that. Or if you want to be more of a surface pattern designer and license your work and earn royalties, then I think it is a good idea to go to the trade shows. So you can do it without doing that, but otherwise you have to email people and build up your Instagram following and all of that. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have another question from another Lisa. And she says, do you think a person should have their own domain for products or patterns in art? Lisa, do you want to answer?
I don't know if I understand completely. And their own domain for something other than their portfolio? Or is that what?
I'm going to respond and ask what she means.
I guess while you do that, I will say, I do think it's important to have an online presence, like a domain for yourself where you can send people to look at what you've created.
Yeah, I'm guessing she means a domain like for a website. And I just asked her that, but I would agree. I think that, okay, she says, yes, your own portfolio. I would say yes. At this point in time, I know that sometimes people sort of ask the question, is Instagram now like your portfolio? Because a lot of artists, I think, kind of use it that way. But most artists do also have their own website where you look more professional, and just having your own website makes you look more legit. And a lot of artists also use a private gallery on their website. So if you might have a portfolio of maybe older stuff, or maybe some things that kind of represent the brand and give people a sampling and kind of an idea of what you do. And other artists have, the private gallery for buyers only, because you don't want to get ripped off by other artists, and you don't want another company to rip you off as well and to say to their own designers in-house, okay, just do a version of whatever this artist has done. So it's nice to have that protection in place.
And I agree. I think the way I think about Instagram is, for myself, it's more of kind of, this is what I'm working on. These are my in-process shots. I am creating. I am experimenting. But I don't really post a lot of my patterns on Instagram. My portfolio is password protected, and I just send people a password for the website, and that's where they kind of go see everything that's polished and everything's in its place. But it took me a while to get there. I don't know about you, but it took me a while to get everything organized and kind of to where I felt professional enough to send people my portfolio. But
yeah, I think when I quit my job back in February, and I basically had like 3 months to get my act together before going to Blueprint, I basically did nothing else. I just created, and again, I had to find my own style. So I created a crap load of patterns. And I think yes, just before I actually went to Blueprint and I was able to upload everything to my website and do the password protected thing. But the hard thing is the upkeep. Every time you make new work and something is licensed, would you take it down, or do you just leave it and just tell people like, oh, sorry, like that one's taken? So I think the upkeep is just a little difficult. And I don't know. I know some people that I think just they'll like share a Dropbox folder or a Google Drive folder, and maybe it's easier just, drop a whole new collection in there and then like take things out as they've been licensed. I don't know. So I don't know. So you can do that a few different ways, but I do think that having a central place, for buyers to kind of find you online is good. Because if they go to your website, then you can also link them, to whether it's your Instagram or your Pinterest, or if you have a Facebook page. But yeah, sort of like a hub. It's sort of like the nucleus to tell people, where to find you. And like in other places, like I have a Facebook group advertised on my website because I want other designers to be able to know about that, and so I can talk about that on my website. And I have a shared group board on Pinterest, so if you're into wanting a way to share inspiration or get inspiration, other artists can connect and share their own inspirations as well. So I have started to put some of my own patterns on Pinterest too, but I'm kind of playing with that, and I've not put everything on there. But what I may do is only put the ones that I've uploaded to sites like Pattern Bank on Pinterest. And I do, I have the link or have like the contact basically on the pin. So I think that kind of makes people hesitate too before they just, rip you off. Yeah. But you never know. You see artists on Instagram and in their stories, they talk about, how some overseas companies totally rip them off really bad. So I think it's just kind of part of it.
I think it
really sucks, but
yeah. Okay, and so Lisa asks, what is the process to get there to find that central place inside? Lisa, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Could you maybe explain a little bit further? What's the process to get there to find that central place inside? I don't know what she means by that.
Maybe like, how do you actually pick what website to use, or how do you actually pick a domain?
Okay.
Maybe
that's what she means. I'm not quite sure. You can talk about how you found your domain and your website.
Well, I chose Squarespace because I also sell products. And so they have like an online shop, and it was user friendly, and they have, you can do password protected pages, and I don't know. It just seems like the most user friendly to me, and their prices were cheaper, or not cheaper, but reasonable, I guess.
Elisa says, you said you keep your art in a central place. Yeah, so I think that would be the password protected site page on your website. And so when buyers come to and they want to view your art, you just give them the password because you know that they're a buyer and it's not just like online for anyone to see and be able to rip you off. You know that you're only working with people that, or you're sharing your patterns with people that may actually buy it or do a licensing deal with you. But in terms of a central place offline, I mean, I use Google Drive. A lot of people use Dropbox as well. So that's another service that you can use. But yeah, I use Squarespace as well, Lisa. I think that's one of the best sites, platforms to build a website. A lot of people also use WordPress, but I don't like dealing with all the coding. I mean, I do a little bit of coding on.
Yeah.
And then other people use Shopify, but I think that's more for like selling physical products, or I don't know, maybe digital products.
Yeah.
I'm not as familiar with Shopify, but I think that's a good one as well. But yeah, I would highly recommend Squarespace.
I'm old school. I use for all my files, I still use an external hard drive, and then I use. I do that too. Okay, Google Drive, and yeah, I kind of like dump them in all sorts of places. My 3-year-old has found a way to delete files, and so I have to keep them like hidden and protected. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
That's a different video blog.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. Lisa says, okay, Squarespace is kind of what I was referring to. All right, cool. Yeah, so that makes sense. All right, I'm glad that makes sense for you guys. Let us know if you have any other questions, and I'll try to answer them later on. If you're watching this at a later date, I'll try to be in the comments and just respond to you guys. Lisa, do you have any other kind of final thoughts on, Blueprint versus Surtex?
I just think go with your gut. If it's something you want to do, I honestly don't think you can lose by trying. And don't put a ton of pressure on yourself, and do as much research as you can. And we're pretty much all in the same boat. Everyone had to learn at some point, and everybody was the newbie, and everybody felt a little lost. And so just keep researching and go for it.
Exactly. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for coming on today. I loved having you. It was good to see you again.
I know. Well, good luck with your agent.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, keep in touch. And I'm sure we'll do another video maybe next year.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
Cool.
Okay. All right. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.